All right, welcome in college basketball. That's what's on our mind, I think, as we've got 30 some odd games on tap here tonight. There's got to be a lot of teams and a lot of schools that people have heard of here tonight, unlike last night. No offense, Norfolk State, but we do have some games getting ready to go here today with absolutely top 25 significance. And we'll go over a couple of them, and we'll put out a few best bets here around the horn as we welcome in three of the best at WagerTalk.com as Bryan Power, I think, along with Adam Trigger in the house, and double R1L Steve Merrill somewhere in a theater near you. Gentlemen, welcome in on this. What the hell is today now? Tuesday. Yes, welcome in on Tuesday. So, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Whoever's whispering. Can somebody please tell me which game? I believe Bryan Power. We are starting off with tonight. Where are you looking for a big game breakdown?
Well, Joe, we are heading to the Mountain West to talk Boise State, Colorado State, and I think the spread's too big here. Boise State unbeaten on the road in conference play, only team in the Mountain West that can still say that. 4 different double-digit scores on this team off a monster win over Air Force by 38. Boise's still tied with Utah State for the conference lead here. And we got to talk about what they did last week. I think the most impressive win of the Mountain West Conference season to date. Boise goes to Albuquerque into the pit. They beat New Mexico as a 10.5-point dog. That's New Mexico's only home loss all season. And if the Broncos were able to do that, they're certainly capable of pulling an upset here, I think, in Fort Collins. Not saying it will be an outright win, but at the very least, close game Tuesday night in Colorado State. You want to talk about Colorado State last week? It was a bounce back week for the Rams. They beat San Diego State here at home. I was on them there. And then they beat Fresno State. But prior to those 2 wins, they'd failed to cover 6 in a row. So I don't know. Just because it was a must-win spot against San Diego State. Fresno's one of the Mountain West teams that's not so good. But, oh, by the way, Boise beat Colorado State earlier this year. They didn't even shoot that well either. When they did it, just 39%. They still win by 7. Colorado State in that game, they shot 47%, but only ended up with 58 points because they were 4 of 16 from 3-point range. At home, I figure they're going to shoot better than 25% from 3, but I don't think they're going to shoot well enough to cover this inflated number. Oh, by the way, Boise's the best rebounding team in this conference as well. It would be dog or pass for me here in this big game breakdown. Take a look at the road team, Boise State.
All right, Boise State, it is grabbing points there on the road. Should be a good one out in the Mountain West. And Trig, if memory serves me correct, I believe ACC somewhere in that ballpark there was, if I recall, that you are talking about here tonight.
Yeah, we'll go to the ACC. It's Clemson and North Carolina. Your typical is kind of what I've been talking about on the show, talking about on Spaces, where I think the books beat you to the number sometimes. Like more recently, it's something I'm seeing. I talked about it in the "What Did We Learn" section on Monday, where I think they've priced in the whole okay, this might be a letdown spot for North Carolina, which I do think it could be. I mean, of course, they come off of the Duke win. But man, like it just doesn't feel like there's much line value at 6.5, which is too bad because Clemson's the way I really wanted to go in this game. And so I'll kind of give my breakdown and then see what you can do with that. I just was hoping to get a couple of more points, but in the same token, these are 2 games I talked about on WagerTalk yesterday, Virginia and Kansas State, and both of them got there sort of regardless of what number you got. So, it's just something to consider. As far as the handicap is concerned, listen, Clemson, they need their guards to play well to hang with North Carolina. If you go back to the first meeting, there was a lot of sharp people on Clemson. It looked like it was going to be a very favorable matchup for them. And they came out and went 1 for 18 from 3. They scored 55 points and they lost by 10. Which is just like this is a Clemson team that's like been a top 50 shooting team all year. So the thought that they could go 1 for 18 again, kind of unlikely. The other thing I think is a big takeaway from the first meeting for me, Joe, is a lot of those shots were open. Clemson was generating good looks; they just couldn't make them. I mean, it was probably their worst shooting performance of the year, all things considered. 36.2% from the field in that game. So they have the right mix to sort of compete with North Carolina in the respect that like they'll play through PJ Hall, who's a fantastic player. And he's going to kind of draw attention from the North Carolina defense. He's going to be able to kick it, but they need to make their threes. You can't go 1 for 18 and expect to win a game. So if they can shoot the ball better here, I think it's going to keep them in the game. Now, you could look at the over potentially because I do think North Carolina probably scores a little bit more here as well. Clemson, this isn't exactly an athletic team. Hall is a great player, but then you've got guards like Joe Girard, who transferred from Syracuse. Shiflin is another one that comes to mind as a forward. Like they're not going to be able to like compete with North Carolina running up and down the floor. So UNC might get some transition buckets here. You also might see them get to the rim a little bit, but Clemson should score as well. Like I would be willing to bet anything that they shoot better than they did in the first meeting. It's almost impossible for them not to. As far as the spot is concerned for Clemson, they really need this win. Like they badly, and this just goes back to the discussion of the ACC. This conference is bad. Like outside of your UNC, Duke, and now Virginia playing their way into that third sort of top three, there's a real drop off in this conference. These teams like the Clemsons of the world desperately need quality wins, and this is their chance to get one. So I don't think you're going to see them overlook this game, especially with how poorly they played in the first meeting. They had to feel like their game plan was good in the first meeting, and they just failed to execute. So it just goes back to what they need to do here. PJ Hall is going to be in the middle. It's going to be on guys like Hunter and Girard to knock down perimeter shots. I think Joe Girard might bounce back here a little bit potentially. I saw him get into it with Brad Brownell over the weekend. That was a clip that was like sort of going around Twitter. They kind of had a little tiff, if you will, in the middle of the game. So one would think like he's a fifth-year senior. He's got to be focused for a game like this. Maybe you do get the letdown spot for North Carolina and they just come out and give this one to Clemson. But even if you don't, if Clemson's hitting their threes, they have the right combination of like offense to score on North Carolina. And so with all that being said, it's probably going to be tough for UNC to pull away in this game. So I didn't get the number I wanted for a client play, Joe, and I have 4 other client plays already today. So this was kind of a pass because of the number, but I absolutely could see Clemson giving UNC all they could handle in this game.
Let me ask you, if memory serves me, Trig, this was 8 last night, and it cratered today to 6.5. Are you shocked? You think it comes down even more than that in this game?
No, I actually talked about that on Spaces. I'd be really surprised if this goes to 6. If anything, I could see this going back to 7. It probably stays at 6.5. I think you would definitely see some North Carolina money at -6. I think if it went back to 7, like again, I would have hoped to get like 8. 8 would have been nice, like that was sort of gone quickly. So it really like on a different day, Joe. Maybe I would have rolled the dice with 7, but I have so many plays I already made for today. It was kind of easy just to stay off of this one because I didn't get the number I wanted.
Yeah, it felt like maybe there was an injury or somebody not playing because boy, that got crushed apparently this morning there from the overnight, but it could still very well continue to go up, like you said here, 6.5, maybe even 7, 7.5. But keep an eye on the market for that one. And double R1L Steve Merrill coming in from WagerTalk today. No doubt you talked about a couple of these games on there. I'm sure you and Teddy. And if I'm not, was it Big Ten you were looking at here for a big game breakdown, or am I completely off here?
That's all right. We're all gonna chip in and buy you a subscription to Slack after the show.
Thank you.
So you get all
That'd
the
be
notes
great.
Brian Power will actually have a free play in a Big Ten game. You just add 2 more. Big 12, almost got it. Big 12. We're gonna look at Texas Tech, Baylor, and once again, it's $5 customer appreciation Tuesday, which means every capper at WagerTalk.com has a $5 best bet. And I do have a strong college basketball best bet tonight on a mere 71-44 start on basketball sides in both college and pro this year, ranked number 1 since October, since the start of the season. So why not get an instant 80% discount with $5 Tuesday right now and get my top best bet tonight? Also have an additional 2-pack, a 2-for-1 special with college and pro, and also a bonus free play. But I'm going to look at a big game breakdown, the ESPN game at 9 o'clock Eastern, Baylor, Texas Tech tonight. And this is an interesting game for a few reasons. First of all, both teams tied in second place now at 5-3. Both coming off last-second results on Saturday, but they went the opposite way. Baylor squeaked out the 2-point home win against another top 20 team in Iowa State. Joe and I talked about that on the last call show on Saturday morning. And we also talked about Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and I liked Texas Tech. In fact, that was my free play on Saturday. I went 4-1 on Saturday best bets, and the game that just missed the cut, luckily, I guess, was Texas Tech. A lot of people saw it as a free play, but it wasn't an official play. And it went down to the wire as well, and they lost by 3 against Cincinnati. But I thought it was a good spot for Texas Tech. The fact that they came up short is a little bit of a red flag with me, and I'd be careful because they were an undefeated home team going in that game. They still didn't get it done. So I'm not going to ask them to do something good here on the road at Baylor. I do think Baylor wins this game tonight. The problem with laying the 5.5 or 6, though, is that all 8 conference games for Baylor so far this season have been decided by single digits, including all 5 of their wins. So let's not mess with the side. Let's look at the total here. And I do think there's some value with the over 144.5. Opened as high as 146. It's come down to 144.5 today. But if you look at the sharper leading indicator books, they're back up to 145. And I think that is the way to play this one. These are 2 of the best offensive teams in the country. They both rank top 20 efficiency out of 362 teams. Both shoot the ball extremely well. And the pace, although both play the slower half of tempo, they're so efficient on offense, I think it'll make up for it tonight. And the other thing I want to point out, just some math here. I know Rob Bino's not on right now, but I got to do some math. If you look at Baylor overall in the season, they're scoring 13 points more per game than their opponents allow on average, but they're giving up only about 4.5 less. So that's almost like a net 10. And if you look at Texas Tech, they're a net 6.5 on offense, about a net 6.5 on defense. So they're neutral. This total should be in the 150 range. Just saying that net 10 average score around 140, that gets me up to 150 here. So I do think this total is light at 144.5. And recent histories have favored the over as well. 3 straight the last 2 years, and 4 of the last 5 have gone over. They played twice last year. They got to 151 and 155, got to 156 the year before that. Take a look at Baylor and Texas Tech over tonight at 9 Eastern on ESPN.
All right, good stuff there. Big 10, Big 12. What's the difference? The fact that I even somewhat remembered any of it, you should be impressed, Merrill. All right, there we go.
Always
We've
impressed.
got, I believe, 3 best bets still coming, but you heard Steve mention it is a $5 customer appreciation. I think Trig told you he's locked and loaded, ready to go on his page here. Plenty of plays tonight. Merrill's ready to go. And BP, before you give us that best bet, and I'm not going to lie, I have no idea where you're going with it. But why don't you tell the folks exactly where you're heading and what they can get for $5 over at WagerTalk?
Yeah, been a lot of college basketball talk here today on WagerTalk TV for me, but my $5 play is actually in the NBA, a rare 4% side for me. Joe, I've had just 2 4% NBA sides since Christmas. Both of them won. All 4% plays since Christmas. How about 67% across all sports, 26 and 13. So I feel really good. Head them over to my page, wt.buzz/BP. Just $5 gets you that 4% NBA side for tonight. This is also a client play, what I'm about to give out. It is Michigan State. This is your Big Ten fix, Joe, as we will look at Michigan State and Minnesota. I'm playing Michigan State on the money line here, so I was hoping this line would drop to 3, which it did. And I talked about this game on Wager Talk today with Steve and Teddy. If you missed that, my power ratings still say Michigan State's top 15 team in the country, even though they've been disappointing. Minnesota, yeah, we all know they're the best ATS team in the country, but they're not my top 75 of the power ratings. I think this has been an extremely fortunate team to get to 18-3 ATS. They're 14-1 ATS at home, which is remarkable. So God bless you if you've been backing them. But last week, Minnesota pulled off a couple miracles. All right. They're down 14 at the half to Penn State. They win 83-74, even though the game was tied at 70 with just under 3 minutes to go. Then at home versus Northwestern on Saturday, what do? Well, they're down 8 with under 6 minutes left. Northwestern could not make a shot. They did not make a single field goal the rest of the game. They scored just 5 points in overtime. Minnesota wins by 9. Golden Gophers are ripe for regression the rest of the way as far as I sit. And then Tom Izzo, what can you say? We all know what he does typically this time of year. Gets his team playing well. They take their lumps early. They turn it on down the stretch. Sure enough, 5-1 their last 6 games. Top 30 adjusted offensive efficiency. Top 30 adjusted defensive efficiency. And oh, by the way, we've been talking about conference rematches here on the show a few times. These teams met last month. Michigan State closed as a 12-point home favorite. They didn't cover, but they still won by 10, led pretty much wire to wire. So I think we're getting a discount. If minus 150 is too high, above your juice tolerance, I wouldn't fault you for laying the 3, but Michigan State money line minus 150 is a 3% client play for me, Joe, and my best bet for the show today.
Wow. Okay, there you go. Michigan State looking to get it done in the Big Ten here today. That means we've got a best bet here for Adam Trigger. And Trig, if I am not mistaken, and I think I remember this because it's got to be Mountain West. If it's going to be anything, it's got to be out west, and it's got to be late because, quite honestly, none of the other teams are playing. So what do you got here tonight for a best bet for us?
Yeah, well, my clothing's usually a giveaway on this show. As you see, Air Force basketball. That's what we're going with. I have four client plays, and one I gave on the show yesterday as a best bet. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can go click on it. We need those clicks. And the second one is here. Now, I got a little bit better number than you can get right now, but I still think it's very playable. So I locked this in, Air Force plus 11 for clients, 4% play. I still think 10 is playable here. I still like 10 as a 4% play. And basically what it comes down to is, this is something we talked about a couple weeks ago, finding good spots with these double-digit underdogs in Mountain West play. The theory behind that was, the top of this conference is historically good, but some of these lesser teams like the bottom half of the conference, they're still good enough where they really probably shouldn't be double-digit home dogs. And I think there was one night, maybe it was 2 weeks ago today, where like all of them cashed. I know I had a very good night that night. I believe I went 4-1 and hit multiple double-digit Mountain West underdogs. And then we kind of saw the books what they always do, Joe. They were sharp to it, and suddenly, as they popped up over the last week or so, it's been harder to find spots where I feel like you're truly getting the right number. But one of those came about last Wednesday, made it a 5% play on Boise State. That won outright. Another 5% play was Air Force against UNLV. We played that one outright. So they have done well. And I think the Air Force could hang around here. I think the spot is perfect for them to give San Diego State a game. So San Diego State, big game for them over the weekend. They beat Utah State. It was a physical battle. They pull away and win that game, which was kind of a huge game for them as far as their schedule is concerned. And they've got another big one in a couple of days. They continue on to Reno after Air Force, and that's going to be a pretty big game with Nevada. And one thing I would say the biggest difference from last year's San Diego State team that went to the NCAA tournament final to this year's is they lack depth. They don't have quite as deep of a roster. And so I think you could see Brian Dutcher maybe rotate a little bit here. I don't think he's going to play his guys, like, especially if they get a lead. They're probably not going to play like all the starters the whole game, which could help you cover a number. But the other thing is here, Air Force isn't as bad as the books make them out to be because they play well despite not winning. So yeah, did Air Force lose by 40 over the weekend to Boise? Yes. Could that happen? Of course. We've seen it happen a couple times, but we've also seen stretches where they're pretty competitive. And I think because they have just one win since December 3rd, which was the win over UNLV, they get priced like the books know they're not going to win, but they still hand you a number like 11 where you get them on their home floor. And I just think that's too many for an Air Force team that can shoot the three, that's got a couple capable players. It's Ethan Taylor, Ritas Petritis are both guys that can keep a team in the game. I know BP and I sweat a nice Air Force 15-point dog at a taco place in Pittsburgh after we left the Pitt game. That got home right at the end. So I just like Air Force in this spot. And I think it's a perfect spot to go against San Diego State, who has struggled in this spot in the past, even back to last year. They come off the big win earlier this season. They got a big win over UNLV. They should have lost at San Jose State. They had a big win, and then they went to Boise and lost by 1. So there's been a little bit of precedent for San Diego State maybe letting down after the high-profile win. And one could argue that Utah State is as big of a win as they've had all season. And then you throw Nevada, a road trip to Nevada on deck. They're probably going right from Colorado Springs to Reno. I don't know if they'll go home between then, maybe not. But the point is, it's just not a great spot for San Diego State to go on the road and win by margin. So Clune Arena, I went there earlier this year. They'll probably get a good crowd for this game, but it can be a tricky, sort of spot to play. There is altitude there. Air Force will slow the game down. Another thing that sort of favors, getting a number like 11. So I took the points here, Joe. I do think Air Force finds a way. I don't know if they'll win, but I think they find a way to make this ugly and close and potentially low scoring. So we took the 11 points. It's a client play, 4%. Air Force basketball tonight. Hopefully they get it done for me again.
The market must be agreeing with you as seeing 9.5s now popping up. So spot on there, Trig. It's Mountain West time here at home with Air Force. And you notice how he said they didn't sweat it over a beer in that town against Pitt, but that's a whole different story for another day.
There is a different Joe, quick story for the show. So I had never been to Pittsburgh before, and BP wants to buy me a beer. We get to the arena, and I'm trying to pick one out, and he picks his
Iron City.
What did I ask for, Brian?
Iron City. Trig goes, tell me about this. Tell me about this Iron City. I was like, oh no, And he asked the girl behind the bar. She's like, what do you think about Iron City? And the girl's like, yeah, it's not very good. I was like, yeah, man.
Icy Light is okay. You gotta go Icy Light.
Natty Light.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Pittsburgh's
it was.
I've got an Iron City
Light.
T-shirt. I'll wear it next show. I've got an Iron City beer T-shirt.
It was Icy Light. It's the first time. I mean, listen, I drank plenty of beers during my college days. Never heard of Icy Light. So I got laughed at by BP, the girl behind the bar. I'm sure Marco, when he gets a hold of this, will laugh at me as well. But yeah, I ended up ordering
Pittsburgh beer only.
It's the end of this.
How was it though, Trig? On a from a level of 0 to god awful, I'll never drink it again. How bad was it?
Never tried it. I got talked off of it before I ordered it.
Oh, they didn't even let you taste it.
Let me tell you something, Joe. You used to be able because Athens, Ohio is close enough to that region. So at OU at the CVS, you could buy an Iron City Light, a 40 ounce for 69 cents if you wanted in 1999. That was an incredible deal when you're a sophomore in college.
Say no more. 69-cent 40s tell you everything you need to know about the quality of beer we're dealing with on that. Merrill, how you ended up with a T-shirt, I have no idea, but break it down for us along with your best bet, please.
Yeah, a lot of Pittsburgh guys. That's the only reason I know about Iron City Light. Iron City Light's okay. Iron City is hardcore. You can taste the steel and the coal in every can. That's their marketing. Let's get back to business here. Going to look at a free college basketball play in a moment, but just a quick reminder, it is $5 Tuesday customer appreciation. I do have a strong college best bet for $5. That's an instant 80% discount off the normal price of $25. If you don't believe in discounts, though, I made an additional 2-for-1 special with 2 other plays for just $29. That's a pretty good deal as well. So, yes, 3 best bets. Might want to consider that direct subscription as well, as we have the rest of February for just $8 a day. You get all 3 best bets tonight. Oh, by the way, a bonus free play as well on my page for college hoops. Number 1 in basketball since the start of October when the season began. Number 1 at WagerTalk.com in both college and pro hoops combined. So check out the 3 best bets. The bonus free play in the Big 12, because I'm going to the SEC for a free play here on the show, and that is Kentucky -10. Several reasons why I like this game. It really does set up well for Kentucky as we're playing against a terrible Vanderbilt team. At first, let's set the stage. Kentucky just had a high-scoring loss against Tennessee. It was a high-profile top 10 matchup, and they never led at home on Saturday. In fact, they've now lost back-to-back games and 3 of their last 4, but nothing's wrong. This is a team that's just struggling on defense, and that was obviously the case, giving up over 100 on Saturday. But boy, did they get the right opponent tonight, as Vanderbilt is awful on offense. Cornelius Vanderbilt was better shooting the basketball than this Commodore team. They're averaging about 39% from the field, 28% from 3 on the season. Kentucky is averaging 22 points more per game than Vanderbilt this year. And in conference play alone, Kentucky is averaging about, I believe, 19 and a half more points per game. That's how bad. Actually, I'm sorry, 22 points more per game in conference play as well. Let's not undercut them. This is a really bad Vanderbilt offense. They won't take advantage of the weakness of Kentucky. Kentucky is a great offensive team still, and they will be fully focused, not because of the 2 losses. They also got eliminated last year in the conference tournament by Vanderbilt. In fact, Vanderbilt's won back-to-back games in this series, but don't overthink it. They'd lost 14 in a row before that, and Vanderbilt just won against Missouri. Their only conference win of the season is a 1-point home dog against a bad Missouri team. Their 5 previous losses before that were by double digits every time. Lay it if you're going to play it with Kentucky -10 tonight, 8:30 Eastern on the SEC Network. And don't forget, a bonus free play in college hoops is on my page right now, along with 3 best bets, including the $5 special. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com.
All right. That entire segment brought to you by Iron City Beer, where not even Trig would be allowed to drink it if showing up in Pittsburgh. So there you got it here, guys. Yo, that was just awful. Now it's like Meisterbrow, and it's bringing back terrible memories. There you got it here, guys. It is $5 customer appreciation. All 3 of these guys are locked and loaded, ready to roll here tonight. Great opportunity for you to partner up with them. Visit their page. That's Bryan Power, Adam Trigger, Double R1L, Steve Merrill. That's right. $5 packages right now with their best bets, guys. Go grab them, and let's make it a very profitable Tuesday here as we kick off the month of February. And of course, hit that subscribe button and like button if you haven't done so already, and make plans to come back and join us again tomorrow for another edition of the College Basketball Tip-Off Show. Until then, best of luck with your plays tonight. We'll talk to you again soon.